So Drake is literally upset. He's hell of upset right now. And he's actually showing all his feelings. Like, I'm not surprised it's coming from a full-on water sign with a Scorpio sun and also a Cancer moon. But let's get into it. So Drake is basically suing Universal Music Group and also Spotify for basically saying that they are the ones who enhance Kendrick Lamar's success in his recent diss track that was aimed towards Drake when they had all this beef over the summer, basically saying that they used bots. Now, many people speculate that this is untrue and that Kendrick Lamar did not use bots. And even if he did use bots, he was probably taking it out of one of Drake's own books, because a lot of people have believed that Drake has been using bots for years. But let's get into it. I honestly think that Drake is being a little bit sensitive right now. So I'll be honest, when I heard this, that Drake was suing Spotify and also Universal Music Group, there was a certain energy that I couldn't deny. I felt like Drake was biting the hand that feeds him. Let's be honest, it's kind of giving P. Diddy energy. And it's kind of giving that energy right before the mask fall. Ooh, right before the energy of something big happening. Remember when Sean Combs, another Scorpio, sued the tequila brand? I think it was like Dejalone Tequila or whatever that brand was called. And he basically sued them. And then after that, his downfall proceeded to happen. So I would be cautious if I was Drake, because sometimes when you are trying to make a statement, that statement makes you. And you have to be careful when you are basically throwing jabs at people who don't necessarily see it the same way, who have potential of also ruining your career. And I'll be honest, Drake is not where he wants to be, and he probably won't get there anytime soon. But I was just like, I gotta look at his chart. So for those who don't know, Drake is a Scorpio. And like I said, I've been saying this for a very long time. This is not a good year for the Scorpios. This is not a good year for fixed signs in general, because a lot of the reasons why is because the fixed signs are now feeling that movement of Pluto moving into Aquarius at an all-time high. Aquarius is still at a 0 degree, so it's going to continue to affect everybody throughout multiple years. And we'll see this as it continues to move. But when we look at his chart of what is going on today and what is going on right now, we can see a lot has changed. So this is Drake's natal chart in the smaller circle, the closer circle, and this is the transitioning chart, as we have movement of Pluto right there at 0 degrees, and it's about to fully be in the 6th house, which would be aligned with the Aquarius. One of the things that stands out to me when I look at Drake's chart with this Pluto energy, it makes me think that, in all honesty, his daily well-being is just not that well, and he's basically starting shit with anybody who will listen to him. And he's definitely in his feelings, and I feel like a lot of that has to do with his emotional base of who he is as a Scorpio sun, and also with a moon in Cancer. And nothing is wrong with being in your emotional base, but when you have a type of pull energy like a Gemini, who is the polar opposite of you, coming in and creating such mass tension and really taking up most of your space, you might be feeling very overwhelmed. And technically, this transitioning Pluto is still in the 5th house, but when it goes to the 6th house, I think I would be a little bit more worried about how he is doing. We see the creativity, that energy is really being affected, that energy of the leader, of the person who is seen as on top around the areas of hip hop and also the area of music in his industry, really taking a shift. Another thing that I want to point out that a lot of people might really not have that much focus on is I always want to look at when we are talking about areas of wealth, areas of partnership, areas of relationships, areas of that nature, we're going to look at the 7th house. And what's interesting is we have not only do we have him basically going after Universal Music Group, but we also have him going after Spotify. Now, there's two things that are very telling about this is the 7th house, and also we have that energy of the transitioning Jupiter hitting him in the 7th house of, traditionally it would be Libra, but his is in Pisces. Also, we have to remember that Saturn retrograde is over, so now Saturn is back. Saturn's also creating areas of restriction and also areas of taking away. I honestly think that Drake needs to pay attention to a few things before he goes off and just starts suing people for no apparent reason and over some false claims and accusations, because we have to be honest, the people are feeling Kendrick Lamar way more. And even if that hurts your ego, and that's what this Saturn in the 7th house is showing, is even though this hurts your ego and this hurts your energy of your sense of consciousness, you have to allow the people to enjoy what the people want. And this is just going to create more backlash for you when we look at the relationships. But another thing that I want to point out is it makes me wonder if Spotify and UMG were basically using bots. Why? How come they would want to see the downfall of Drake starting to take place? Was it because maybe he was getting too arrogant? Maybe he was getting too cocky, where now they feel like, hey, it's going to happen. Let it start to happen now, because then we can recoup for whatever reasons. To me, I'm going to tell you this feels like what started to take place with Sean Combs. Just saying. And another thing that I want to point out is when we look at the energy of the 4th house, I feel like I'm not surprised that all this news broke around Mercury retrograde, because we see that the transitioning Mercury is headed into the 4th, which is in Sagittarius, and that energy for Drake is a high impact moment and also a high energetic alignment. Look how many other places and other areas of movement are in his 4th house. So not only do we have the Mercury, but we currently have the Sun. And the Sun in Sagittarius at 5 degrees speaks about energy of being creatives, and also it is basically over his energy of his natal Saturn and also Uranus, which I feel like almost like he was like debating, should I do this? Should I not do this? But then since Kendrick Lamar released his album, he really was like, okay, we're doing this regardless. And now he might have to almost live with the consequences that Mercury gives, because that Mercury is going to continue to play this out through the energy of the media. But I feel like he wanted to get connected with the media. He's been going on some like podcasts, and he's kind of like been doing some things, but people just aren't really checking for Drake like they used to. And he acknowledges that, and it's really plain to see. And let's go take a look at his 10th and his 11th house. So what's interesting about his 11th house is that he has that energy of his transitioning Saturn creating a trine with his natal moon. The transitioning Saturn, of course, is in the house of partnerships, and the natal moon in Cancer is in the 11th house, which the 11th house a lot of people see as the collective house, also the house where the public will see him. I feel like he's going to feel very isolated. He's going to continue to feel isolated for a very long time. It's probably a good notion that he stays close to family. Also, when we look at his 10th house, which is all about the energy of reputation and success, we have the transitioning Jupiter over his Gemini in the 10th house, which we think would be creating some type of areas of abundance and expression, but however, it's kind of affecting him in a horrible way because it is opposition of his natal Uranus, which is making him very restless, making him wanting to fix some things, but he can't because it's also in conjunct with his Chiron. It's time to do some re-examination, see how this is really going to play out for the long haul. Take care, Drake.